And with me today, I'm joined by Craig Conway, who is a British actor, producer, and director with a career spanning film, television, and independent cinema. Known for his grounded performances and commitment to complex human stories, Craig has built a body of work that reflects both creative range and emotional depth. Alongside his acting career, Craig has worked behind the camera as a producer and director, giving him a wider perspective on storytelling, leadership, and the realities of the industry beyond performance alone. His journey hasn't been linear. He has navigated the instability of the acting world, the impacts of professional rejection, and the lasting influence of how he was parented. Experiences that shaped his self belief, resilience, and relationship to authority and worth. Craig speaks openly about how early conditioning, emotional imprinting, and lived experience informed both his life and his work. He reflects on how rejection can reshape identity, challenge confidence, and ultimately become a catalyst for deeper self trust in creative careers. A recent experience navigating industry sharks further sharpened his relationship with fear, presence, and intuition, reinforcing the importance of discernment, boundaries, and integrity in both life and work. However, he is a founder of A Part to Play, a school-based community focused on creative development, personal responsibility, and honest conversations about the roles we play in life and work. Through it, Craig invites others to engage more consciously with their own stories on and off the screen. Wow, Craig, I could go on, but welcome to the show. Such an honor to have you here finally.
Thank you. Yes, it's been a long time coming, and I'm over the moon to be here with you. It's great.
Wow, amazing. So, Craig, it would be great for you to obviously share your own journey with my listeners. So, looking back, how do you think your early environment influenced your confidence and sense of self?
Do you know what? It's a bit of a paradox, really, because my upbringing was extremely unstable.
Mm.
There was a lot of kind of, mental, physical abuse and things going on, and so you tend to kind of confidence-wise, you tend to break down quite a lot. Um, but because of having such a young mind, I guess, and being so young at the time, the art and creativity, even down to things like drawing and stuff like that. I was in a choir and doing school plays and all that kind of thing. That in itself gave me somewhere to kind of run to. So it became like a refuge for me, really. So I think, especially the informative years leading up to moving from a town and parents separating and all of that kind of thing, and then moving to a new place in the northeast around 9 or 10 years old. Um, I was very much somebody who dealt with any kind of aggression or pain or conflict by trying to make people laugh. And unfortunately, I was quite a cute little kid. So when my parents would fight, if I walked in the room, sometimes I would be able to kind of pull the conflict down a notch or two. In the end, it spiraled to the point where that didn't work, and the cute little boy walking in the room wasn't effective at all. So that was quite a discovery at an early age to learn that you kind of become this little people pleaser,
Yeah.
and you're always on edge, trying to navigate things going wrong ahead of them going wrong, which is a huge responsibility, I think, for any child. But unfortunately, um, it's took me almost 50 years to kind of get to a point where I'm understanding that. But had it not been for the creative arts, had it not been for theatre, for performance, for acting, for all of the work that I've done within the film and TV sector and stuff like that, there is no way I would have gotten through that. And I think I would have very easily gone off the rails had I not had a creative outlet.
Wow. So it practically it saved you.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Just, having that just how it's so relatable. I mean, you spent many years acting and obviously going for acting roles. We know that it involves constant rejection. So how did the repeated no's affect your confidence?
Do you know that the getting the nose weren't so bad? I was, and again, quite early on, I was lucky, and I think it was because I just believed so much
Mm,
that that I that I kind of that I had something to offer. I knew there was something better than the life I'd been leading.
mm,
So when I would go into auditions, I remember one of the very first big auditions I ever had was with a wonderful casting director called Emma Style. And bless her, she passed away a while ago now, but a, a friend of mine had said, Craig, there's this big TV show happening. You're not really supposed to be there, but we'll get you in the back door. And at the time, I'd been learning Hamlet at college. So
mm.
I kind of was like, okay, I'll give this a go. And I went in and she went, we just want a photograph and then you can go on your way. And I went, no, I've got a monologue. And she's like, no, I just want a photograph. And I went, no, but I've got a monologue. I want to do my monologue. And she went, okay. So I did my monologue. And she went, are you around next week to go and meet the director? I said, yeah, absolutely. So then
Wow.
I went to meet the director. He hated me. It was brilliant. And then I got another invite to go to London to meet the writers and the producers. And then when I came out of the casting down there to Shepherd's Bush, and this had gone on for like a couple of months, and I came out at Shepherd's Bush, and I went to phone my mum and say, "Yeah, it hasn't worked out. I still don't know." And she ran out and she went, "Have you got an agent?" And I went, "No." And she went, "Okay, I'll get you one. You've got the job." And then that literally was it. But
Wow.
that had happened a lot with theatres in the area, people offering me work, and I was also writing my own stuff as well.
Wow.
So it didn't matter what I was doing. I
Mm.
joined loads of amateur dramatics groups. I joined loads of workshops and classes. I just couldn't get enough of it.
Wow.
So it was, I had a lot of self-belief then,
Yeah.
more so when I was younger than I did as I got older. It became much more difficult as a more mature actor because then you're not just facing rejection from castings or auditions, you
Yeah.
start facing rejection from other actors because the competition is so high. So
Wow.
you get a great job, and then other people who you've befriended on the way are like, well, how come he's getting that, and how come I'm not getting that? So you end up in there's a lot of toil that you have to go through,
Yeah.
um, but you grow a bit of a thick skin.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I wouldn't have even thought about the the kind of rejection from your so-called friends that you meet along the way. And wow,
Yeah.
it's tough. Yeah. So how do you think your early home dynamics influenced the way that you relate to authority and direction, like later on in life?
I think authority. I think I was always scared of.
Okay.
I wasn't very academic at school.
Mm.
So even down to that, my drama teachers and art teachers, I had a big love for, and I'm still in touch with a couple of them now.
Oh,
Um, so they were amazing. But when it came to things like academia and math and things like that, I really struggled. Um, and and yeah, I think authority always scared me. And I think that was also to do with there was some very deep-seated anger to
mm,
do with, I was angry at the authority around me when it come to parenting. Like, why did you allow these things to happen?
mm,
Why did you listen to me? But I was never able to vocalize that. So when I played parts in the theater or when I played parts on TV, I very quickly started playing villains. And I think that was because it was the exact opposite of me, but it was all of this really deep rooted emotion that I could tap into,
yeah.
stuff that I'd never resolved. Um, so I could make a villain work really well for an audience or for on screen.
Yeah, the pent-up anger came out.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
because
Yeah.
I really wanted to do comedy. That's what I wanted to do. At
Yeah.
least that's what I thought I wanted to do. Um, and yeah, ended up playing villains for most of my career.
Wow. That is, yeah, again, that's such a crazy kind of outlet. You wouldn't even think that. And it makes you question, whether what actors choose to play is actually impacted by their upbringing.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. And so at what point did you actually start questioning or unlearning those earlier beliefs?
Uh, Again, I don't think there was any kind of, major point where it happened.
Mm,
It's been a steady progression, and I think you end up starting to realize something's not right or something needs to be worked on
Mm.
when you get into relationships and you can't hold them down. When I became a father, that was terrifying for me because I'd never had a father to tell me how to be a father. I
Yeah.
didn't know what the male role was, to be honest, and I was quite intimidated by other men all throughout my life. Very intimidated by it, and that again, it starts coming up in various different ways. So you play a villain in a role, and then you may go out to a party or you're kind of hanging around with other actors who are classed as kind of hard men or big boys, and I was never very good at that. I wasn't a man's man, if you like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I had real problems with that. And I got, very young, but I used to get attacked quite a lot for being gay because I was doing performing arts.
Right.
So I found it easier to be able to converse with femininity and the female friends I had, and it was much more difficult to find friends and male companions who actually had that same um, feeling towards who we were and what we were doing.
Wow, yeah, absolutely. And so how do you think eventually that you started to learn to separate your identity from the outcomes that you just couldn't control?
So some of that was kind of facing some fears. I used to do workshops wherever I went. I would try and find local places, and usually I would work with either disadvantaged youth
Mhm.
or juvenile youth, or even work in prisons with older inmates. Um, and I felt drawn to that, I think, because I knew that there was something fundamentally um, kind of what's the word? There was something fundamentally human about going into places where you're scared and
Yeah.
using creativity to get a response back
Yeah.
from people who ordinarily you should be scared of.
Mm.
So that was a process which I didn't even realize I was doing. If I think about it now, it wasn't that I went out going, yeah, I'm going to deal with my shadow and I'm going to deal with these things. It was a kind of natural sense of direction that I was being pulled into
Mm.
because and also when I was writing and producing and working with young people in theatre, I was able to ask questions and then see repetitive situations come up and go, oh my God, that happened to me. And then suddenly I had a wonderful experience with a writer called Jeff Thompson, who wrote a wonderful piece called Romans 12:20. And the directors came and I played Jeff in a couple of one-man shows, which was terrifying in itself. But all of it was about the abuse, and all of it was about that self-abuse and lack of self-worth,
Mm.
and male sexual abuse and things like that. So that was the first time I really engaged in going, wow, performance connects on such a deeper level. This is not just entertainment. This is not just plays and performance. This is getting to the soul of what we are as human beings, and that sent me on a very different trajectory, I think.
That was, yeah, it was such, oh my God. That is such an emotional short film, and I actually do recommend it to a lot of people. In fact, I can add the link to this episode to that because it's definitely worth the watch because your acting was just amazing anyway, and the way that you played that role, and it's such a difficult role to play, especially when you've come from a traumatic past yourself. So I can imagine. I remember us talking as well about how it's, that actors do get triggered in roles. So,
Yeah.
self-care and obviously professional help's really important. What's your experience around that, with yourself or any actors that you've worked with?
Yeah, you see it a lot. You see people being affected by it. I think I was always lucky in a way that I managed to be able to hang a character up at the door and leave it and go, "Oh, okay, that's not me. That's somebody I'm playing." But very recently, and this is only going back just over a year, I did a kind of 2 days on a TV show, quite a big TV show. Um, so it was a last minute call. It was, can you come in, literally kind of the next day type of thing.
Mm.
And I had the biggest panic attack of my life over 2 days, which was insane. And they called the paramedics. I literally thought I was having a heart attack. I felt about 4 years old. All of these thoughts, all of this. I mean, it was like my whole world fell apart. And
Wow.
I'd never, ever felt that
Mm.
um, on stage or on the screen at any time in my whole 30 plus years. And that really broke me because suddenly my safe haven had gone. You
Mm.
know, being an actor was something that used to liberate and make me feel good.
Mm.
And it all came tumbling down in epic style in front of everybody, cast and crew.
Wow. Wow. And I can imagine that, you're probably not alone. There's probably a lot of actors that have struggled. So how did you overcome that?
I really had to go and do a lot of shadow work.
Mm.
Um, and not to get into too much psychology, but when you reach an age of turning 50 and you go, wow, I've still not resolved these things, what is happening? And then you start looking at the repetitive patterns that keep again and again keep spiraling coming into, and the thought process. And actually it's really about regulation and regulating your nervous system
Mm.
and understanding that what has been is not affecting what can be and what is happening now.
Yeah.
And that is quite it's a difficult task to do because it can feel very isolating and it can feel very dark. Um, and it brings up a whole lot of things. I even went back in one of the sessions to sit and talk to my father and to myself as a child. And it wasn't pretty. It's not a pretty area to go back to
Mm.
because there's a lot of pain there, and I didn't realize how much. And what kicked it off, I found out, was that because I was in a courtroom in the scene, and there
Ah,
was all of these people around me, all of these extras, all these judges, all of these authoritarian characters, and I was myself playing somebody with authority.
yeah.
It made me feel um, really uncomfortable and really vulnerable because it showed me that I did not believe I was worthy of playing anything that was authoritarian. Like I had no self-power, no self-strength. I didn't have a voice, and everything collapsed. I remember my mouth went so dry that I couldn't even open my lips. It was like they'd stuck together. My legs were shaking. I was sweating. My hands were gripping to
Wow.
the box that I was standing in. And bless him, the guy who was playing the judge opposite me, he just looked at me. He was like, "Are you okay?" And he'd known me from a show I did 20 odd years ago. And when I first came in, he was like, "Hey, it's great to see you. I'm so glad to be able to work with you." And I was just mortified.
Wow.
But it's amazing how much we carry,
Yeah.
and when it's released, it has been one of the most brutal, but one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose it goes for everyone, including actors, is we got to do the work. We have to release what isn't serving us anymore because trauma, whether it's from abuse or abandonment or rejection, or verbal, physical, any type of trauma, we hold in our bodies, and you experience that firsthand, the
Yeah,
consequences of holding that, and what it causes. I mean, our body knows, our body keeps the score. That's obviously Bezel's book, but it's true.
yeah,
Our body,
there's
it holds stuff. And so,
everything.
yeah, absolutely. And so the work that you did, it's something that we talk about all the time. It's the inner child work, reparenting. You went back to reparenting your inner child, which was lacking the love and care that it needed at the time. And
Yeah,
yeah. So how are things with you now?
look, there, it's going to be a work in progress, that's for sure.
Mm.
Um, but I think there's something very liberating and very comforting in thinking that I can spend, however long you've got over your 50 years from where you are to where you're going to go. I don't know if you have more or less, who knows? But what I do know is the the experience of getting up every day, and sometimes, if it's a 5:30 morning session and I get up, to sit within yourself and to be able to say, okay, where am I now? Not where have I been, where am I going, but where am I now?
Mm.
That that sense of reality check and that sense of being is more important to me now than anything I will ever do.
Mm,
And for many years I played on being the victim
yeah.
when things scared me. Oh, well, it's because I can't do that, and if I got angry, well, that's because my mom did this, my dad did this, and so you become this ball of anxiety and anger, and you're questioning all the time. And actually, all you have to do is set that free, look inward, and all the answers are there. And this is exactly why, setting up a part to play is not about necessarily being a better actor. It's actually about saying, if the whole world is a stage and all of us are actors, as good old Shakespeare said, then we should play that part with such enthusiasm and confidence and calm
Mm,
so that we can then adapt and become anything else that we want to be for the time that we need to. But
yeah,
but we don't let it overrule us.
exactly.
We
Exactly.
sit within who we are, and that is a really liberating, wonderful experience.
Wow. I love that. Yeah, I mean, we were going to talk about a part to play, so we may as well carry on with that. So how has this space helped people to move out of survival mode and into conscious choice? Um, Obviously the community is I think it's pretty new for
It
you.
is, yeah.
Mm.
And again, that's took me. I've been writing um, a book, a part play, for several years, and never completed it.
Mm.
And I keep coming back to it, and it keeps coming up in different practices and different things I'm doing. And so eventually, I thought, right, where can I go? What can I do? I didn't want to do anything that was marketing, funneling, and doing all that. I just because I don't feel comfortable. So I thought, how can I do it? And then I saw this school site and I thought that looks interesting, and it
Mm.
was about real communities. So I put it out to a couple of family members and friends, and then yourself, and and then suddenly people started coming, and I got terrified of putting a price on things as well. I'm terrible at that, and again, that's a self-worth thing.
Mm.
So I kind of did it in a way that I hope will be just comfortable.
Yeah.
Um, but it's there because I want to commit to a space where creatives, not just actors, but writers, directors, producers, crew members, or even people who are just generally creative within their spirit,
Mm.
want to be able to communicate with others, pose some questions, um, ask some things out there, or release something into that community where we can guide one another.
Yeah.
Um, because creativity is the essence of all of us.
Yeah.
There is no getting away from that. It doesn't matter which route you take, whether you're a CEO, a business person, an entrepreneur, whether you want to be an actor, singer, musician. Creativity is the essence of humanity, and and so I want a community where we can engage that, grow it together,
Mhm.
and have somewhere where we can celebrate what we do, as well as be open to say, today it's not working and I'm feeling scared, or
Mm.
I'm feeling isolated, or I'm feeling hard done to, or I'm feeling really angry at the world. Get in there and be creatively angry.
I love that. Wow. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And as you were saying that, it just brought back a lot of memories of, the unfortunately the sharks in the industry that are taking advantage of the vulnerable and they prey on the newbies that are in the industry. And I think that's going to be a really key discussion for us anyway now because both you and I, we have unfortunately encountered what we describe as industry sharks. And obviously, you don't need to explain what happened because I know that there's a few legalities in place about that. But what was happening to you internally at that moment?
I think it's just the shock, you know. Funny enough, there's a situation which I can kind of talk about, but there's a wonderful um, filmmaker who recently, over the last couple of years, he supported me and was helping me to try and get a project going. And it ended up that, these people had said, yeah, we're going to give you X, Y, Z, we're going to do this with your project and blah, blah, blah. And so, this person invested into that and said, well, I'm going to help you. Wait until you get that funding and you do all that. And,
Mm,
it was a really hard situation because I really respected the filmmaker
mm,
and what he did, and I'd worked with him personally as an actor as well, and he directs um,
mm.
and unfortunately he kind of lost that money in that,
Did you?
and that was heartbreaking
Mm,
because of people telling me they were going to provide X, Y, Z. And some of that is has been, definitely not now, but has been my naivety
yeah,
because I've allowed I guess, the thought of the destination. I'll get the film made. It's all going to be great. You allow the destination to take over the journey. And
yeah,
so you get a little bit um, less detailed on what it is you should be focusing on.
yeah.
And people are good blaggers,
Oh
really.
God. Yes, we've witnessed that firsthand. So, and there's obviously a lot of you know, education around that now. I'm hoping. I'm hoping people are understanding that you can't believe everything that you see online because unless it's, actually a credible source or unless it can be proven outside of whatever platform you're looking at, then yeah, I'd recommend everyone to take things at face value. But what
Yeah.
did that particular experience that what did it teach you around trust, around people and power dynamics?
I think when the big things were happening, when I was producing a number of films, and you find out that there is individuals and organizations that are willing to strip you of what they promised in
Mm,
order to self-serve rather than the project that you're making, you then start losing faith in what it is you do. And that was very hard for me again. I became really angry at the industry
mm,
because again it was like having that whole parenting thing. I trusted the industry because it was my life. It's all I've known. I don't have any qualifications. This is my life. So when somebody says, we're going to help you do this, and then they take away everything from you and also put all of the people that you brought into that fold under duress, and they're getting underpaid, they're getting overworked, and you end up you end up losing and have this real distaste for your industry,
really,
and you want to kind of whistleblow it all and go, this is what's happening, but you can't because nobody will probably want to work with you either. So you're torn between, how do I keep going, but
yeah,
how do I also let people know this is happening? But,
yeah,
fortunately for me, I trusted my gut and I did go after them, and
good.
people now are doing that work. But
Yeah.
but uh, but for me, it was really depressing. I went into lots of depression about it, lots of anger, lots of self-hatred that I'd been so naive and stupid.
Mm,
Um, because I think that trust is everything in the beginning, you
yeah.
know, especially again for creatives. Independent films don't get made very often.
Mm.
So when you see people being taken advantage of, and other filmmakers who you admire being taken advantage of, it's really upsetting.
It is. It is upsetting. Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, when you're a good person and you're a hard worker, you're honest, then it's, you basically mirror that energy and you are then, trusting of people easily because, you feel like if you're that way, then everyone else probably is until you get screwed over. And then
Yeah,
I guess, yeah, and then I guess you have more like of a defense barrier around you, and you trust less people, and it's just a real low vibe way of living. And it's a shame that, we're made to be that way in
yeah,
this industry, which should be creative. It should be abundant and full of, fantastic people. Um, yeah, I mean, it'd be great to understand your views about where this industry is leading to, because I saw a stat around, obviously, we know that films, it's like starting a business project. And unfortunately, there's like only 10-15% of films that actually make money, according to the internet. But what's
yeah.
your views around all of that?
I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's a lot of creative accountancy goes on, and I
Yeah.
think the first thing is always to remember that the film industry as a whole is has been through a really traumatic experience, especially because of the pandemic.
Mm,
However, before the pandemic, it was still in a bad place because there was a lot of money being spent, but it's not necessarily the creatives who are getting access to that.
mm,
It's the kind of the suits at the top making decisions about how you can be creative because they have a whole marketing distribution network that they own in order to self-serve.
mm,
So it, for studio and networks and all that, that's an area that you're probably never going to break or rechange. They have to do that work themselves, which
mm,
is why I love the independent scene, because although you may not make a lot of money, you can make enough
mm.
and you can go on to keep making more films and producing more content that you want to do with your own rules by not thinking about filmmaking in budgetary terms.
Yeah,
Technology now, there is a hell of a lot you can do with next to nothing.
yeah, true. Yeah,
And people will always invest in something that is coming from, somewhere honest and somewhere true.
mm,
There are investors out there. There definitely are.
yeah.
Um, and it takes a while to find out which ones are real, but
Oh yeah,
yes,
that's a big
there are.
one.
Yeah. And I think the more we think about film in the way of how do we integrate it to our community, how do we integrate it to education,
Yeah,
how do we bring working class voices together with people from other countries, other backgrounds, ethnicities, how we come together as just creative human beings and tell stories and share that understanding, we can create platforms for one another where we can share that work between us.
yeah,
And
true.
I think that is the way to do it. But statistically, as you say, um, it is a bit doom and gloom
Yeah,
for
it sounds it, doesn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
of course it does.
Yeah.
But then that's the point as well, isn't it? There is an overload of content now, and
Yeah.
everybody is potentially a filmmaker because we've all got a phone,
Oh yeah, true.
you know. So I mean, if you look at social media, everybody is creating some kind of show,
Yeah.
whether it be a podcast, whether it be a TikTok account or Instagram, everybody's putting on a performance.
Yeah.
So I think we just have to keep going, not get too bogged down by what is there or not there. It's
Mm.
about how you attract the right people, circumstances, and support by being true to the stories you want to tell.
Yeah, and like you said, you hit the nail on the head, and with your school community, it is about creating that community, about developing a community and, making your creative projects so that they're valuable and so they're educational and people can
Yeah.
benefit from them. So I think, yeah, that's fantastic. And obviously all your work, it always has a meaningful story behind it. That's what I've noticed. Mm,
Yeah, I have been quite lucky in the work that I've done. There always seems to be even down to the kind of the horrors and the stuff
yeah,
like that, which might seem like they're far out there, but actually underneath all of the show, there's some real solid content with real human stories behind them. And I
yeah.
think I'm just attracted to that full stop. So
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So yeah, let's just end with some words of wisdom. Right, I'll ask you a few questions. So, first of all, what helps you stay regulated when work takes you into a psychologically intense territory?
Now it's breathing and yeah, letting go, just regulating the nervous system. Breath is everything.
Wow, love that. Yeah. So much about breath work at the moment. Yep, you hit the nail on the head there. Thank you.
Yeah,
So, how do you rebuild self-trust after such a setback?
you have to forgive yourself.
Okay.
You
Mm,
have to forgive yourself for having those feelings of anger or shame or guilt,
mm,
and you have to make your peace with that, and know that you're not a victim of circumstance. You're a victim of mind and thought.
wow, love that. Hence my brand, victim to victor. Stay victorious. Love that. Thank you.
Yeah,
And finally, what would you say to someone who feels unseen or underestimated in their field?
I would say speak out,
Mm.
stand tall, look in the mirror, and say, "Today I change that," and
Oh,
literally go out and walk as the person you want to be and be that person.
wow. Wow. That just reminds me that it's basically just one decision that you have to make. And that's
Yeah,
when your life can totally change. It's just making that decision. So,
yeah. You
yeah.
you can't change anything by sitting thinking about how am I going to change it.
Wow.
It's the action you take,
Yeah.
and then the feelings and the mind will follow. If you go there in the body, everything else follows.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Thank you. So, what part of your own story feels ready to be explored next, but hasn't?
Ooh, that's interesting. I think I'm right in a kind of transitionary stage at the moment.
Mm.
I have a film coming out as a director. I'm producing a number of projects at the moment, one of which you may have heard of, and and I'm developing, hopefully an ecosystem in the Northeast
Mm.
which supports people from education to employment within the independent sector. So I don't know where it's going to go in the way of I know the framework, I know the structure of what it is we want to achieve,
Mm.
but the outcomes, I'm pretty sure, just like every film, will be different to what you begin with to where it goes. But
Sure.
all I know is I'm actually more excited about going into the unknown than
Yeah.
what I've ever been, and
Wow.
that feels really liberating.
That is liberating. Yeah, because there's no anxiety tied to that. It's just excitement. Oh, I love
Yeah,
that. And that's when you know that, you've come a long way.
absolutely.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Craig. So tell us more about how my listeners can find you, connect with you, join your community.
Yes. Okay. So you can find me on Instagram, which is at Conway's Insta or at Conway Direct. Facebook is at the Craig Conway, and I'm also on LinkedIn as well. And if you want to come on the community with a part to play, then you can find the link in my bio on at Conway's Insta.
Perfect. And I'll be dropping all the links into this episode. So please do connect with Craig because I am positive that everyone would have benefited from this show because we've tackled a lot around the film industry, around creativity, around healing and personal growth. So I hope you all found this episode of value. Thank you so much again, Craig, for coming on my
And
show. Finally, it's been a long time coming and it's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
me too. Thanks so much, Anu.
Until next time, my friends, stay blessed and stay creative.